Welcome to the Whistleblower Newsroom. I'm Christina Borgeson. Today is part 2 of my interview with intelligence agent, medic, and combat engineer Frank Gregory Ford, who had served in various branches of the U.S. military for more than 30 years when he arrived in Iraq right when the war started. Barely 3 months later, he found himself strapped to a stretcher, drugged, and renditioned, all at the behest of his commanding officer. Upon arriving in the US, he was accused of treason and espionage. Why? Well, that's the subject of Midnight in Samarra, the true story of WMD, greed, and high crimes in Iraq. A book about Ford's mind-blowing discoveries that prompted an immediate and brutal response from his higher-ups in the US military, most likely at the behest of others even higher up. The book was written with the help of Eleanor Cooney, who captured Ford's voice and experiences in an account so vivid, I couldn't read this book in one go. Reading it may radically rearrange your perspective on 9/11, the Iraq War, the US government, and the country's political leaders, who in this book would by a long shot win the title of Earth's greatest criminals of all time, if they were ever held accountable. Ford is with me to talk again about his experiences. Welcome, Greg.
Good to be here. Yes.
So today I want to talk about how the big guys make money during a war. So the first thing I'd like you to talk about is your incredible experience having a source lead you to $750 million and what happened. Could you talk about that?
Okay. Let me see if I keep this in sequence. The best way to put it would be in my book, I have a reference to the Sheikh. And the Sheikh was the banker in Samarra, the city of Samarra, and he was the president of the Bank of Iraq. And one of the first things he did is when he became my asset was that he pointed me in the direction. He said, understand this, you have to make sure you get control of this person. Okay, this person. And I said, who is that? And he said, well, that is Ali Hassan Assad. Ali Hassan Assad, aka Abu Sager. And of course, everybody's probably saying, well, who is this guy talking about? Well, this is Abu Sager, of course, was the personal banker of Saddam Hussein. And it gets a little more personal with this issue is that everybody knows Saddam Hussein and who his mistress was. His mistress, of course, was a beautiful young woman by the name of Saja. Okay. Well, the thing is Saja, as it turns out, was the mistress of Saddam Hussein and also Abu Sager's daughter. That's where the term comes from, Abu and then Sager, father of Sager. Okay. So what we have here is my source said, you've got to get control of this guy. He has all the money, okay? And he knows all the history of Saddam Hussein, to include all the issues of when he became the dictator, the premier of Iraq, and also what his relationship was with the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. So I arranged to have a visit, we'll call it a midnight visit, to Mr. Sager. And we showed up at Mr. Sager's doorstep at midnight, hence the name of my book, Midnight in Samarra. All right, that's what it's in a reference to. So we showed up to Mr. Sager's front door, and we proceeded to, you know, despite all of the carrying on, screaming and yelling, um, we arrested Mr. Sager and his wife. His daughter was not there. Okay, Sager was not there. And by the way, Sager was the architect, the famous architect who designed all of Saddam Hussein's palaces. All right. And it turns out on the evening that that I arranged for the raid on Mr. Sager's house, it turns out that the daughter had gotten wind of the raid, and she had left for Austria. And I mentioned this because she left for Austria that evening, and she took about approximately $2.5 to $3 billion with her on a plane, loaded up to Austria, Vienna.
Was it a private plane?
That still remains to be
I
seen.
mean, billions of dollars. That's some heft. That's hefty cargo.
You're telling me, but the best is yet to come,
Okay.
because I had put the notice out, okay, through our intelligence cycles, that yes, she was on the way to take that. Actually, the rumor was it was more like $7 billion that the two um, Iraqi sons, okay, the two son-in-laws that had defected, okay, a couple of years before. Well, that money was returned. That's what one of the situations that Seja, the mistress, had arranged for, was the return from Jordan, Amman, Jordan, return of that money to Saddam Hussein. And at that point, the money was given to Seja, the mistress, Abu Sager's daughter, to take that money and deposit it in the Bank of Austria. And so yes, so that information had gone out. Everyone was on the lookout for the daughter, and at that point, when I arranged for the capture of Abu Sager, I was given the word, given the notice that the daughter was probably going to return to try to forcibly um, rescue her parents from the Americans. So so then we were in the house of Abu Sager, and I said, okay, the whole place was being swarmed with soldiers, and everybody was pointing guns at everybody. And I talked to Abu Sager myself, and I said, sir, we're going to take you, as you might imagine. And he said, yes, I was expecting you. And he said, I said, we're going to take you into the police station. And you know where the police station is? And he said, yes, I do. I used to work with very carefully with the police and our intelligence services, the mukhabarat in that police station. And so I said at that time, I said, okay, uh, now we're going to search your house. And the wife immediately panicked. The wife was standing there, and she said, please don't take our money. And I said, well, we won't take your money, but the thing is this: we need to search your home. And so I asked two two uh, military policemen to escort them out. And at that point, I'm oh, geez. Can you stop, pause it for a second?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, ready to go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and so anyway, I we were in Abu Sager's home, and I was looking at the information that was there, different office records and files and so forth. And I walked into his, everybody else was going to his office. I went in, I thought, well, we better check his bedroom. So I walked into his bedroom, and the situation was that I thought, okay, where would somebody that is the banker of Saddam Hussein, where would he put money? It'd be the last place you would expect it. So I walked over, uh, opened an armoire cabinet, which is very big, took up the whole side of the wall of his bedroom. Opened it up, and there were about 7 large bushels.
Sorry, go ahead.
7 large bushels of of, of cosmoline wrapped bundles,
Jeez.
and that was, let me see, one was at the time euros, American dollars, and dinar, Iraqi dinar. And there were about 6 to 7 of these, and each one was the size of a bundle of hay. Okay.
Wow.
All right. And so each one weighed about between 45 to 50 pounds plus. And they were wrapped in cosmoline. And I turned around, and the wife, here comes the wife, wild-eyed, and I just asked one of our MPs to escort him out, but here she was right there, and she was in a panic. She said, "Please don't take it. This is all our money that we have. If you take it, we'll have nothing." And so I, as you can imagine, my patience was growing short with the military police when I had asked her to be escorted out, both Sager and placed in a Humvee and guarded. So to make a long story short, we took the money under guard, and that's a very important thing to mention. It was all under guard as a evidence chain. We were establishing an evidence chain on the banker of Saddam Hussein. And surprise, okay, needless to say, the money was taken to the police station under armed guard, and then Abu Sager was taken under armed guard to the police station. And I thought, well, okay, that's the end of this evening. Well, it wasn't. That opened up a whole new epic, okay, in warfare.
Well,
All
how
right.
much money was it, first of all?
Well, after we took that money, and I had to have 6 to 7 people counting it, physically counting it, through the night. That's how long it took. They had to count it through the night, and then they recorded everything in the evidence chain. And I had got a knock on the door. I was in speaking to Abu Sager. I was in the conference room. They knocked on my door, and they said, at this point, right now, there is, each bundle has an American dollars, in euros, and dinar. Okay, the American bundle has um, uh, uh, $75 million.
Oh,
In,
I thought
right,
it was 40 million. It's not 40 million then. It was 7.
right. Okay. Well, that was 40 million was American, and then the euro pile, okay, and then the dinar.
Oh, so that was altogether 75 million.
Right. Okay. But the thing was, is I said, oh, okay, all right, and I said, can we? And so we used our intelligence systems to convert what that was in U.S. dollars. All of it would be related to U.S. dollars, and we used my what's called a CHIM system. Okay, I'm sorry. The CHIM system that stands for Counter Human Intelligence Management System. And so we converted the money, and I said, okay, lock it up. under lock and key, because I know what's going to happen. This money, especially with our American people there, they're going to steal it, under armed guard. No one's supposed to take their eyes off this storage site. And of course, everybody shook their head very solemnly and said, yes, we're going to guard it. And the reason I mentioned this was that this commander, my commander, Lieutenant Colonel Lion Ryan, that's his name, Lying Ryan, okay, he got wind of it. He shows up, and the thing is, surprise, it mysteriously disappeared. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan and his second in command, who is on the court case, his name was Victor Artiga, okay, the graduate of the School of the Americas. Well, after they had arrived, the money disappeared. Okay. Okay. And so
his name is Timothy, right? Timothy Ryan. Everybody.
Right. Timothy Drew Ryan. But that's what his nickname was. Anybody who knew him, they called him Lion Ryan.
So the 75 million disappears.
Yes. But that was I thought, well, that was it. Sure, it's going to disappear. I can believe that. Okay. Well, the Sheikh, later on, the Sheikh, he came specifically because he'd heard about the raid and the arrest of Abu Sager. He came to me and he said, okay, how much money did you get from Abu Sager? And I said, I had the breakdown of finances. And he said, he kind of laughed. And I said, what is the problem, Sheikh? And he says, goes something like this. He said, I know because and my personnel in my bank helped him move about that number, plus at least underneath the floorboards of his home, at least $650 million were under his floorboards. And so I recommend, he said, take a team of engineers and go and pry up underneath all the floorboards of that home. It'll be worth your while. And as I understand, yes, they did, and they found approximately $750 million with what was found underneath the floorboards. And according to all the accounting ledger sheets that the Sheikh provided, that's how much money was there. Now it was traveling money for Abu Sager.
Wow. So what happened to the money?
Okay, so that would be a good question I'd like to ask my command, because I noticed almost immediately, okay, after the evening with Abu Sager and all the revelations that were coming as a result of Abu Sager, the oil for money, what was it? Oil for
money
oil for
and
food. I'm sorry.
You meant oil for food and the Halliburton
Right.
shell game. Yeah.
Right. By the way, Abu Sager was in charge of the oil for food program. Okay.
Interesting.
So, and the thing is even though he came across as a white-haired, kindly gentleman, but the Sheikh informed me, he said, understand this, is that when you say Mukhabarat is the counterintelligence service of Iraq, and he said, you people should know this, is because that's the counterintelligence service of Saddam Hussein. And as a result, um, Abu Sager was the chief, was the operational command control of the Mukhabarat.
Okay. So what happened to his money?
So you say that like I should know. Okay. Well, the thing is that surprise, when we captured him, took him into the station, the my command shows up the next day, and all of a sudden, no more money.
Including the 750 million?
Right, right,
Oh,
exactly.
that's a hell of a move. That's moving a lot of money.
That's it. And remember, there was, oh, I have something to say. Pause it for a sec.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you say the money disappeared. Your command got a hold of the money, it disappeared. But then Brigadier General Janice Karpinski had a very interesting experience when in the green zone that I wish you'd talk about, because it is possibly connected to where the money may have gone.
Right. Okay. Well, um, like I say, I hate to go down one road because it always leads into 5 other roads on this story.
Right.
So I was speaking to Janice, the General Karpinski. I was telling her how I'd been renditioned, and of course, she was horrified, that her intelligence operative was subjected to this. But the thing was, and then I specifically gave her the information about Colonel Pappas and Lieutenant Colonel Ryan, and how they were going to try to set Janice Karpinski up to have her take the fall for the whole situation.
That's the situation at the torture situation.
The torture situation, my rendition, and Abu Ghraib.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is when she ran into a C-130 on the runway in the green.
Right, right, exactly. And so and so the situation goes, as she called me one day, she called me and said, "I think I found out what happened to your 750 million." And I said, look, General, I know what happened to it. And she says, yeah, Lion Ryan, and Colonel Pappas. And I said, well, yes, but then she said, well, you are guaranteed by military law, by government law, to have a finder's fee for that amount. And
yeah, that's a 20%. The False Claims Act is a 20% finder's
right,
fee.
exactly. Okay, thank you. And so I'm still waiting for my check from the government, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. And so the thing is then she said, well, I had a very interesting situation in the green zone, the infamous green zone, okay, which was just near Balad, okay. And
right.
she said she was on the tarmac, and that's where I was loaded up on a stretcher, strapped to a stretcher, onto a plane, okay, was Balad. But she said she said, what is this plane doing, in my area of command, my AO, as they call it? And she walked on board. And said, who are you people? What are you doing here? And she said, all she could see from the internal cargo area was massive amounts of money wrapped up in cosmoline package, like what Abu Sager had. One of his packets was the whole cargo area was filled with what are called money packets. That's the official name for it, money packets. And I said, well, what did they say, General? And she said, well, I think I found out what happened to your 750 million, how it was shipped out. Okay. I said, it was shipped out. She said, absolutely. Okay. It was loaded up onto this plane, and this plane makes what do they call it? Oh, they call it the money run, the greenback run.
The green zone, they called it the green zone Cyprus Express.
Right, because from that, thank you, from that runway, they would leave Balad, Iraq, and they would fly into Cyprus. Okay, and they would, and there from there they would have several armored trucks and that would pick up the money from that Cyprus Express, and they would ship it to. There were three different banks, as I understood it, three different banks, that were taking that money, the American money, to three different accounts.
Whose accounts?
Oh, well, let me see. You can take your pick. Okay. Whoever, as I understood it, whoever was helping us, as in, I heard the name Tony Blair.
Oh my God.
Okay. And there were a couple of other, accounts where that money went.
By
I
the
don't,
way, the other thing that Karpinski noticed on the paperwork was that the removal of this money, this flight had been authorized by Paul Bremer, head of the
yes, that is correct. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Paul Bremer. Okay, of course. And Paul Bremer, when you say Paul Bremer, you say Bush family.
right.
Okay. Dresser Industries, uh, um, 9/11, uh, the 9/11 attacks, and it was Paul Bremer who specifically was not there when when his buildings were attacked, and all of his personnel that worked for him were also killed.
Oh, he had an office in the World Trade Center.
Right,
Is that
right,
yeah? Well, yeah, but the fact that he was in charge of the coalition's provisional authority, meaning he was
right.
like the head of Iraq. So he was overseeing all this removal of assets from Iraq. I thought that was very interesting.
Yes. Now, I actually have a report, specific report from a Henry Waxman,
Yes, Congressman
Senator
Henry.
Henry Waxman, and he actually authorized an
Congressman,
investigation. And
yeah.
I noticed that it was very odd. He had the investigation into the money packet flights, the Cyprus Express, and as it turns out, okay, that yes, he confirmed all this information that your listeners are now receiving. He confirmed that, and the thing is that yes, it was green zone money, and yes, it was going to those accounts, but it was American. That was the biggest thing, was millions of dollars every day in these money packets were going to these accounts in Cyprus. I forget that there was like three banks, three accounts, okay, that he was going to. So, but I know I heard the term, I heard the name Tony Blair, and of
Wow.
course it would make sense that Mr. Blair, which and I want to point this out, uh, Mr. Blair authorized the plasma jets, the plasma destruction of the weapons of mass destruction that I found in Iraq, that the British took those canisters and fed those into the plasma uh, furnaces.
Oh, so that was
Right.
done by the Brits.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the reward that Mr. Blair received for getting rid of those weapons of mass destruction canisters.
So why don't you talk about the Halliburton shell game? I thought that was an interesting way for them to make money.
Okay. Well, everything kind of dims when you realize the amount of money that was being taken.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Now, as the situation happened, and I don't want to name names particularly, but I'll give positions.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
All right. And so this happened in Kuwait City, and I had not heard anything about this in Kuwait City, there was, it's a large shipping port, and as I understand, the shipping port was, uh, let me see, it was sending, and okay, I have to keep the sequence right. It's very confusing. Okay,
Right.
of course, Halliburton put it all together. Okay, so what happened was that this situation was is that the harbor master said that every day they were having super tankers uh, fuel up, okay, uh, fuel up with specific sulfur, clean sulfur, high grade sweet oil from Iraq. Okay, and the issue being is that no one knows this, but Iraq is by far the largest exporter of oil, sweet oil, so low
That's
sulfur content.
very clean oil. Yes.
Right, right, low
Yeah.
sulfur, and it was being loaded up on virtually anything that they could carry that could carry oil. It was being loaded up. Okay, and I thought, oh, okay, that probably is your typical, high tech, petroleum piracy project. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, well, it's rather diabolical. Okay, and so what happened was that this oil was being loaded up and being sent to a couple of refinery sites in the U.S. And I guess there were so many shipments of oil that there were virtually like a traffic jam coming into these 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 sites, specific sites. And I thought, oh,
Where
okay, all
were
right.
they? Do you know?
A couple of them were in like North Carolina, and he had mentioned one in the Bahamas of all places, and there were a couple more that I don't remember where.
Okay.
But the thing was, this is what's important about that was those ships, surprise, they took the oil, they didn't offload the oil into American ports. And the
Okay.
thing was, okay, why wouldn't they offload the oil into American ports? Well, they were taking a GPS fix at that location and sending off to maritime control and maritime shipping and so forth. And they stated that they were offloading the oil to those refineries. Well, it turns out, no, they weren't offloading that oil. They were turning right around, weighing anchor after 24 hours, okay, of GPS positioning. They were running full steam ahead all the way back to to the um, to the port of Kuwait City. Put me on hold, okay? So
Okay. So they weren't being offloaded. They weren't being offloaded in the States and the Bahamas. They just waited 24 hours and then turned them around, sent them right back to Kuwait City. Is that correct?
that's correct. But they made sure that a GPS location and site was filed every time,
Right.
right? And so, but it appeared to be that every shipment, and the thing is Halliburton had chartered virtually every available boat on the high seas to carry bulk cargo. So, and so what they did was these ships, they burned rubber as was described. They burned rubber back to Kuwait City. They offloaded the oil, okay, there in Iraq. Okay, a big loop they made. All right. So what they did was they charged the American people the amount of money, the taxes, of course, to ship this oil back to the U.S., where they didn't. They charged the American people the money. They didn't offload it, and then they sent it back. They shipped it back to Kuwait City, where they processed. It turns out they processed the oil, they offloaded the oil, processed the oil, cracked it into the different components of oil. Okay, fuel, jet fuel, kerosene, all that. They 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 broke it into the components because, and you're probably wondering why, it's because American refineries are all antiquated. Were antiquated then, but the what 3 refineries that they had in Iraq were all what they call uber refineries, all super refineries, super modern, well run, well put together. All right. So these products then were used. Okay, and of course they passed the cost onto the American taxpayer again, both places. All right, and so then they turned right around with the finished products, and they had approximately, most people don't realize this, there were at least 4 to 5 other wars going on at that time in Africa, Somalia, okay, in places like this, besides Iraq. All right, and so this paid for at a markup. They said a markup at least 300%, like per gallon of fuel. Okay, 300% passed on to the Americans, of course. And the thing is that's what provided our fuel for Iraq, okay, and all the other wars that we had going on in the Horn of Africa.
So Halliburton charged us to bring the oil to the United States, and then they charged us to take it back to Iraq and sell it to Iraq.
And
And
use the Iraq.
sell it. They charged the U.S. government to go and ostensibly to refine it in the United States, where they didn't refine it.
Right.
Then
exactly.
They charged the taxpayer to send it back to Iraq. Then they refined it, and the taxpayer, of course, basically paid for it twice.
Both ends. And then it was a markup of at least 300% per unit when all that fuel went into, say, a tank, for example, a tank. Okay, the American taxpayers were paying 300 to 400% markup per gallon of tank fuel, diesel fuel. Yeah. All right. Okay, and so everybody except the American taxpayer made money on that.
Okay. That just, I mean, I hope smoke is coming out of everybody's ears, because it's coming out of mine. I mean, that's just crazy. That's got to be criminal too.
Yes, and that information came from the harbor master of Kuwait City.
So what about the UN's oil for food program? What were they doing with that?
Okay, well, let me see. How many Lamborghinis could Saddam Hussein's sons buy? Okay, with the oil for food project. Okay, well, as I understood, and this came right from the lips of Abu Sager, was that he was responsible for the selling of oil for food. Okay, and he set the whole thing up directly and exactly. All right, and so, and the thing is as I understood it, is everything that he told me about the oil for food, incredibly corrupt, indescribably corrupt. But the thing was, that's who everybody was making money off of there in Iraq. Members of the Hussein family, of course, Chemical Ali and everybody else. But the thing is they, Abu Sager controlled it, watched it, and then there was something, he had mentioned something at that point, okay, and I can't remember, but he told me exactly what it was that the Bank of Iraq, that's how they were paying for the weapons of mass destruction. That's how they
UN's oil for food program.
Right, exactly.
So what would happen? I mean, they would get the money and basically siphon it off. Is that what the deal was with that? They would get the money from where? From the well, from the UN, I guess, right? What
Right. Well,
get the
the
money from?
UN, but the thing was is then it would it would always go into the Bank of Iraq. There was a branch right there in Samarra, and so and so whatever they needed to do, if they were going to transfer, purchase gold, okay, where they were going to purchase weapons, all that money, food food for oil. In other words, they were Saddam Hussein was charging his own people for food, okay, and then the money was being placed in bank accounts for like weapons purchase, and so forth.
Now, you mentioned something very interesting because you said there was actually little cash, not very much cash involved in this, and instead they were actually given the equipment they needed to actually print American money.
Yes, my goodness, your information is up to date. Okay, and and this is what I understood from Abu Sager was that at the time, but by the way, he after he spoke to me, just like the Sheikh, it sounds disastrous, but Abu Sager died almost immediately after he gave me this information,
Well, he
which
didn't just die. He
well, yeah, he was beaten to death by CIA interrogators. All
right.
right, and one of the things I had to do, one of the shocks I have in my system right now is I was asked by several members of our command because we knew our group knew that we had picked up Abu Sager, knew he was taken, and they said something was wrong with Abu Sager. We went down to Abu Ghraib, building 1A, Abu Ghraib, and the rest was history. All I could see was uh, was Abu Sager, 2/3 dead, and he'd been beaten dramatically with the back of the head, a blow to the back of the head, which caused him to have what was called, as I would describe it, contra coup. Okay, where he was hit in the back of the head, and it actually caused, like, I believe it was the left side of his head, and his right eye orbit was actually extending out of his head.
Oh,
He was unconscious, and he was actually experiencing what was called Cheyne-Stokes breathing patterns. And
well,
I knew
that's
right.
what like that's like when you're dying, right? Like the what they
Yes,
call the death rattle. Like you stop breathing, and then all of a sudden you take a breath and you breathe a little bit, and then you stop breathing for a long
right,
time.
right, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
he was on a stretcher, and the thing was, is I wasn't sure, so I knew the tension and the drama around this man was just overwhelming. Okay, and so I knew something was he wasn't going to live probably the night. But surprise, I got word that the hospital there in Balad, okay, he was at Abu Ghraib when I saw him last. But the thing was, at the field hospital, a a very Anglo-looking man arrived with an SUV. All right, opened the tailgate and dumped Abu Sager onto the steps of the field hospital there in Balad. Okay,
Wow.
and that's the last time I saw or heard anything to do with Abu Sager.
So let's talk about. I want to talk about those plates. It's funny because I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's a very popular uh, international global criminal TV show called Blacklist.
No,
And
I haven't heard of it. I
on
can
one of the
imagine.
on one of the episodes, the guy gets paid. He gets his money not in cash, but in plates, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's they probably picked it up from somebody's reporting about these plates in the UN
Right.
for oil. So explain to me who could possibly allow plates for making American currency, plus the paper for making the American currency, plus the dyes, everything. How, again, who can authorize such a thing?
Well, let me see. Like I say, I'm just a humble civil servant, so I'm
Yeah,
only
you're
getting.
a humble civil servant, but you have run into a lot of unhumble situations, you know.
Absolutely. And as I understand, yes, you're absolutely correct about the pressure plates that were used, to print money. All right. The pressure plates that were used, the specific, what is it, cotton paper? It has to be a certain tensile strength cotton paper. All of this, that had to be authorized by the CIA and George H.W. Bush. All of it.
God, who has those plates now?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know, but I have talked to different people from the Treasury, okay, and they said it was just that was too amazing. I said I don't know. They said that as a result, though, as far as they knew, that's why the paper printing process went to a 3D stamp, some sort of permit stamp that is stamped on every single dollar, okay, or monetary currency, but it's a 3D
you mean
aspect that is
they changed it after this?
right, and yes, as a result,
Wow.
because all that money was turned loose, virtually unlimited, turned loose in the world. They had banking systems. Remember, Iraq had the Bank of Iraq, okay, for example, and so all that money could get into the U.S. system without any problem, and any European system without any problem. So that's why I understood was that because they realized that Iraq did have this access to these pressure plates, was that is that they had to uh, convert the currency to the 3D um, stamp system, stamping system. So, for lack of a better description about what happened and what they said, that's what it came about. Was just about the time when they realized that yes, Iraq did have this capability of producing virtually unlimited accounts of money. And they also, by the way, I just now thought of this, you know, right now as I'm saying this, is that it was no problem print that money up and then put it on an airplane and fly it into different banking systems like Malta and Cyprus.
What is going on in Cyprus? I mean, why is Cyprus the jumping off point?
Well, I don't know, but all I know is that they have $750 million that I have 20%, a legitimate claim on 20% of. Okay, so they can write me a check. Cyprus, what was it, Famagusta? Okay, the banks there, they can write me a check
Well,
anytime they want.
what happened when you tried to reclaim the money?
Uh, I knew better. They're all
No, but if you legitimately were supposed to get it, what happened? You said, okay, I'm entitled to 20% of this money. And what were you
well.
told by whom?
It's real simple. Okay, for your listeners, I want you to listen out very carefully. Surprise, within a few hours after all this money was discovered and exchanged with Abu Sager, okay, the banker of Iraq, and by the way, he did tell me he didn't have much life left. Okay, when I said
He
goodbye,
knew he was a dead man walking.
when I, when I when I said goodbye to Abu Sager, uh, he looked around, and this was in the city of Tikrit. Okay, That's where Saddam Hussein was supposedly captured. But he looked around and he said, my goodness, he said, history goes full circle for me. And I said, why is that? And we were sitting in a palace. It was made from cut pink quartz. Okay. And he said, my daughter designed this palace right here.
Wow.
And so I said, well, I shook his hand, and he actually, of all things, he said, here, I want you to have this. And he gave me a ring. All right. And it was like an old, very old, uh, ancient amber colored ring. And he said, here, I want you to have this. Just remember me. And I said, well, I have to leave now. And I said, I will check back in with you. And this is a point that Janice Karpinski, I made with her, was that I walked back into the rest of the palace where we were, and it was the black marble palace, the black Carrara marble palace. The entire interior was black Carrara marble. And I
Wow.
walked back in, and I look and I look across the main foyer of the palace, and there was a big table. And I looked and I couldn't believe it. At the end of the table was a chair, was a big tall white chair with gold leaf pattern on it. Well, that was the famous chair with Saddam Hussein, you've taken of him sitting, residing in the chair. Well, I will admit this on your show, all right, that I couldn't resist the temptation. I crossed the black marble rotunda, and I jumped into the chair.
You
Uh,
sat on Saddam's throne.
Sat on Saddam Hussein's chair, his royal regal chair. I did. All right. So you
Shame on you.
make what you want, okay. But the thing is after I sat in it, and of course I didn't really notice any kind of mystical feeling or anything like that. But the thing is I returned after sitting in the chair. I walked back and checked on Abu Sager and looked in, and there he was sitting in an empty room, but there was a rug, a big beautiful Persian rug there. He was sitting on it, and sitting right next to him was one of the top assassins of the Mukhabarat for Saddam Hussein.
Wow.
And I almost had a heart attack because all I can see was that this guy probably had the assignment to snap Abu Sager's snap his neck. First chance he got was to kill the banker of Saddam Hussein, and this guy looked like he could do it, looked like he would do it, and so I walked up to him, and I picked up Abu Sager, and I said, and I told the two MPs, I said, lock this guy up, put him in handcuffs. This is the assassin. And I said, do not, as I said before when I left, do not leave this man alone. This man right here, Abu Sager, do not leave him alone. He's too valuable, an intelligence asset. Do not leave him alone. Is that clear? And they all kind of looked at me, nodded their heads, and picked the assassin up and put him in custody. Okay, so that was the beginning of the end. Okay, for Mr. Abu Sager. But that was the thing. All right, that was our last statement, was to find that our our services, our intelligence services, were making it very convenient to quiet, to shut up Mr. Abu Sager.
By the way, you it was intelligence given to you, if I'm not mistaken, that helped them find Saddam Hussein, right?
Let me see. Uh, Stop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay. So what happened then? Okay, in this particular reference is after I returned to Samara, the sheikh was waiting for me, and he gave me the information concerning the 650 million in floorboards. And then he said, okay, let me see. I suppose you want me to tell you where Saddam Hussein probably is. And I said, well, do you know? He said, I don't know exactly because he's moving around. All right. But I know all the points where he moves around too. And so I said, okay, all right. What we're going to do, and I had to get permission to do this, okay, from that useless, worthless command of mine, okay, and I went to him and I said, okay, all right, we need to use what is called a Falcon view, and a Falcon view is basically a system that they can do it with either a drone or a certain type of airplane, but it takes place, and it photographs an area to between a 10-digit and an 8-digit coordinate fix. And so what we had to do was, and that's of course against all regulation normally to let an asset see this, okay? Because like I say, a 10-digit coordinate is right down to a square foot of area land. And so he said, okay, and I had all the potential positions for 8-digit coordinate that Saddam Hussein could be. And we went down very systematically, went down every single position, and where every bunker was, every hidden area, okay, any kind of hide that Saddam Hussein would use, that the Sheikh would know about, okay. And we had between seven and seven and nine, seven between 7 and 9 sites that were selected, okay, that he knew about. He knew Saddam Hussein would be in, okay, and so we recorded all those and made a fix of all those sites. And he said, I'm absolutely sure that he would be in any one of these. And so he said, because it's so dramatic. What the issue is right now is you need to have me physically have me at each site, and which wasn't a problem. We could take him in a Humvee under guard, okay, to each site. All right, and so and another thing too, by the way, is, and I can say this with a Falcon view, that can take a picture of any place on the earth, but it can take a picture 2 hours before what was going on there and 2 hours after that site. Okay, so he said, now I understand he's going to be underground, and it's going to be very carefully hidden, these sites. And I said, okay, fine, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and send this report. And of course, I sent it to the half-wits that were in my command, okay, and who were certified morons. And I didn't realize at the time that they were too busy making off with that $750 million. Okay, they were busy with that. And the last thing that they wanted to hear from me was, okay, we have a fix by the person who is the sheikh, who understands all there is to know in Salahuddin province. Okay, they didn't want to hear that, and they made all kinds of sneering laughter and big jokes about the whole thing. How I'd caught Saddam Hussein, ha ha, laugh laugh, and by the way, I believe that portion is actually in the Supreme Court record. That portion, and of course that would irritate me because we were losing people all the time in the search for Saddam Hussein.
Right.
People were dying all the time. It wasn't just a big joke or some colonel's big feather in his cap, so to speak. So we needed to get him out of the country, and because we were beginning to lose control of the country. All right, which we did lose control of the country. We didn't ever gain control of Iraq, and so I sent the reports in, and immediately sent them in, and of course then by chance I started getting oddly enough, I started getting the sideways glances, and now what's this about you're saying that we did something bad in Abu Ghraib? And I said, well, yes, of course. And now we need to have you, and this is direct quotes. We're going to have you sent to the combat, of course, the combat uh, medical doctor. I said, oh, okay, I see what the game is now. Okay. And they, and they said, yes. And they said, we're going to have you um, analyzed by the doctor,
By
Dr.
the
Merle
shrink.
Madera,
She
by the
was
Merle Madera. Yes.
she
And
a
this is
shrink? She was a shrink, right? A psychiatrist?
right.
Mhm.
Well, she was an unlicensed shrink.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
To polish the details here. Okay. She was unpolished shrink. She didn't know what she was doing. She'd been in the military, U.S. military, approximately 3 weeks before she showed up in Iraq.
Okay, so we have to we're running out of time, so we have to get to what happened, how they got the information to get Saddam. We
Oh, okay.
literally have like 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, let me see that information. I passed that information on, and I and we were told, okay, here he is. He's in one of these locations. I contacted because I was being, I could see what was happening.
Yeah, you saw
I
the
was
writing on the wall.
right, like strapped to a stretcher and shot full of MK Ultra drugs.
Right.
Okay, and so I realized that when I was returned, okay, returned without any orders, without any paperwork. To this day, I still don't have that paperwork. All right, and now the thing is that I contacted immediately. I contacted the Central Intelligence Agency.
And you told them about the
Right,
coordinates. And
exactly.
so they
Right,
they were the ones who went
and
after him.
right, and of course immediately that's why I was accused of being treasonous, a traitor, is because I called the Central Intelligence Agency and I said, here's where you can find him. Here are the 10-digit coordinates that he is located at. Saddam Hussein is at these coordinates. Okay, and they took the information, and surprise, within 48 hours he was in custody.
There you go. We got to leave it at that.
Okay, my
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. Part 3 is coming up.
Okay,
Thanks
well,
so much, Greg.
thank you so much,
All right, take care.
Christina. Greatly appreciated.
Bye.